Welcome back to another ink practice session. Today, we're going to look at something kind of fun. We're going to be turning random shapes into robots. And we'll do this in the future with other things, like turning random shapes into animals or monsters or dragons. And we might as well take a look at taking household objects and seeing what we can turn them into. It's kind of a fun exercise, especially when you just don't know what to draw in a particular moment. If any of those strike your fancy or you've got some others, please share them in the comments down below. So let's start with just some random shapes. I'm using a pencil here to just get me started. It's a pretty low stress way to handle things. And I'm using this red one specifically because I like it. And because it doesn't smudge nearly as much as the others. So this is what I'm going with. I'm going to just give myself some random shapes. And then I am going to start taking my Micron over the top and see what I can turn them into. I'm aware that these red lines are not the easiest things to see, but that's okay. They don't have a whole lot of importance. I'm going to give myself one down here that just really is kind of abstract and random. The whole purpose here is to practice. And that means several things. It's the ability to practice trying things that you wouldn't normally try. It's the ability to try something that is maybe a little bit out of your comfort zone, or it's just I don't know what to work on right now. That's what this is kind of intended for. I used to do this kind of stuff in my classes pretty frequently, where I would give the students a sheet kind of like this, maybe with Sharpie marks, and then hand them a bunch of microns or felt tip pens, and their task was simply to turn all of that into something interesting. And then as time would go on, we'd get a little bit more complicated with that. We'd go, okay, here are your shapes, but you have to make an elephant. You have to make an octopus. You have to include something leaving something else. And the students would help me come up with those things. They would introduce those. So let's go ahead and dive into the first one. I'm going to take a look at this right here. To me, right off the bat, there is some semblance of shape language that makes, a sense. I'm going to start by just turning this into a face. When in doubt, when you're working with robots, try turning things into faces. Make them goofy. Think of WALL-E and, put eyes on things. Whatever it is. And why robots? Which I'll talk about now, I suppose. First of all, they're fun. I really enjoy working with robots, so for me, it's kind of a no-brainer. But if they're not something that occurs to you, it's kind of fun and interesting to work with something that's a little bit different. I'm going to go ahead and add in kind of a jaw here down below. When I'm working on this part, I have a tendency to be a little sketchy with my lines. I'll fill things in later because I'm just trying to get the architecture of where everything is. But I chose robots partly because I enjoy them, because I've spent a lot of time working with them, but also because they are a good way to handle a bunch of random shapes that might not make any actual sense and turn them into something that's kind of entertaining. And they're good regardless of what kind of artist you are. If you're an artist that works a lot with human anatomy or works with animal anatomy, then you have the ability to turn these into things that mirror that. If you are more of an industrial artist, then obviously this is going to be an easy thing for you to manage. If you are an artist who works with comics and things like that, then there's a ton that you can do. So it's really malleable, and that's, I think, for me, the biggest reason why I thought this was a wise way to go. And we'll see where we get to in the future. We might try some other stuff that's very, very different from this. But at least for today, the goal is just to work out some little funky shapes and robots, hopefully create some cute little guys, and then we'll see how that goes. Sometimes you just need a little push out the front door in order to get moving on whatever it is that's important to you. Now, some artists are really, really good at coming up with their own ideas, but I have run into many over the years who that little push is often just a very helpful thing. They're inspired by something else, and that helps them get out of a funk. And so I kind of hope that's what this is for some of you. I hope for some of you, you see this and you're like, that's entertaining, I'm doing it because it's goofy. I hope for others, it is an excuse to get out of whatever rut you're in. Now, I am obviously adding additional things that don't conform to the shape that I have here, and that's fine. It's my drawing. I'm going to do what I want. And here I'm going to go ahead and just add on kind of a weird tentacle-y arm, do some clamps, and then we'll pretty much be finished with this guy. I'm trying to be pretty quick with this one. I might speed up some of the other ones depending on how it goes, but I like to, with this kind of stuff, especially to keep it normal speed if I can, because that just seems like that is the most honest way to do it. And I want to start working against this idea that we see on so much of the platform that is indicating, you know, people work faster than they actually do. Like, art takes a lot of time. And the goal here isn't necessarily to create a good drawing. It's more just to create something, to get started, to branch out. I am not rotating my paper at all while I'm doing this, which would obviously make a lot of these kinds of things easier. And you should not feel like you can't. You can use every resource that is available to you. So if you need to change the angle of your sketchbook to get a better angle on things, do that. If you need to, you know, look up a couple references because something in here reminds you of something else, or you're not sure what something actually looks like, then go for it. Just because you're not watching me do that doesn't mean that you can't. All right, this guy's coming pretty close to being finished. I think he's going to be kind of a floaty dude. All right. Let's call that guy done. Goofy little floaty guy, and not particularly complicated. Now we're going to move over to this one because, you know, we have to have a heart. Because when I was looking at the planning for this, I realized that it's coming out on Valentine's Day. So we are going to do a guy over here. I'm going to add a couple extra shapes just because I didn't have quite enough going there. You could already see how this maybe could be a robot. So let's dive in and let's have some fun with this guy. Again, as I start, I like to take, you know, my time and make these shapes in the way that I think they're going to work. I don't, you know, finish them out entirely. You'll notice, like, I'm creating an Oculus kind of thing here, but I'm not worried about making sure every single mark is perfect at the beginning. If I was actually trying to make these really precise, and if you're trying to do the same thing, I would recommend doing a lot more thorough sketching. You don't have to put eyes on them. I find for the robots that I often draw, it just makes it a little bit more entertaining. It feels like it's a character the second I have an eye, so I like to try to get that on pretty early. That's mostly working. I hope you can't hear the wind in the background, but of course, the second I decided to start recording, the wind picked back up. It's been up a lot lately. It's been weird. I've had to keep the bird feeders inside because it's just been so windy all the time. And our younger dog, Aya, gets really upset at the wind and barks at it. So sometimes in the middle of the night, I can't hear that it's windy, but then the dog starts losing her mind, and it's like, oh, okay. It must be windy. Poor thing. Let's come over to this, and we'll make kind of an interesting silhouette here and turn this into a hand. To be fair, when I slapped this shape down, I kind of had that idea in mind, but I wasn't 100% sure that's what I was going to do. And that's also different than saying that, like, I did that with that intention. It's more like the moment I made that mark, my brain said, ah, this is something you can turn that into. And that happens to me a lot. Does that happen to you if you start making just random marks like this? Will you also run into those things? I don't know. I don't know if that's just one of my weird kind of imagination things or if that's more of a universal trait. Okay, we're going to go with some slightly more in-depth fingers here. Not terribly so. I always have to think about this with where thumbs are. You know, if things are reaching down in, thumbs are on the inside. So, like, if this guy has a thumb, it's going to come out like this. Hands are hard. And I find that if I need to practice hands, in fact, if anyone needs to practice hands, it's often not a bad idea to practice them in mechanical forms like this, because there's just less at stake. It's a little bit easier to kind of work out the things that you need to work out. So, and I'm just going to fill in between these fingers with black. That's just making my life a little bit easier. Let's go ahead and finish these guys up, and we can move somewhere else. I often get to the end of a bunch of fiddly stuff like this, and it's like, I wonder if I can just cut off that other hand, like I got caught in a, you know, some kind of firefight or something, and that way I don't have to draw it the second time. It's funny how you'll look for excuses out of work that you've created for yourself sometimes. All right, let's finish off these pieces here. Make them make as much logical sense as something like this would. Maybe we'll do some notches here. We'll do some bolts. Could even have this be a panel. Put some little bolts here. Those kind of things are a little bit unnecessary, but they will, on a large scale drawing, start to make things make a little bit more sense. And again, this is just for exploring. This is for practicing. This is for figuring stuff out. Well, I'm going to speed up this next section while I do this hand, and then we'll come back once I get to these things on top here. All right, that'll work. I think we'll do another panel here on the underside of this arm. We're not being very consistent at all. You know, the tops of these are totally different, but it doesn't matter. So let's come up to these circular shapes I have here. I'm not sure what they are, but let's maybe turn them into antennas of some kind. So let's do like this. It's probably off the top, isn't it? Yeah, let's pull it down. Cool. So this is big antenna. It reminds me immediately of Sparkman from Mega Man 3, if I'm not mistaken. I love the Mega Man games. I haven't played them in a long time. I go back to them now and they feel a little bit dated, but they were some of my favorite video games growing up. It looks like that one's back behind, so I think we can probably go ahead and work on this heart shape. So let's kind of come around here. Let's get this coming down. We're just going to go ahead and take it into a full heart shape. We're even going to have that part overlap a little bit there. I think we'll bring a seam down this way, like this. All right. Let's go ahead and get this antenna in there. This one's obviously not going to be as tall as the one in front because it's further back. We'll see the bottom of that one. We'll go ahead and do the tube here as if it's coming into the underside. Less of a tube, more of a hose, perhaps. All right, cool. So this guy's kind of done. If I wanted to keep going, I would probably consider putting in some like rocket boosters here on the bottom, something that's making it pretty clear that it's floating. All right, let's take a look at our next one here. This one I've overlapped with some of the other shapes, but it doesn't particularly matter. I think we're going to expand this one out quite a bit. So as I start on it, I'm looking for something that reminds me of something. And there's not a whole lot right now, to be honest. Though the only thing that I kind of see with this is maybe like it could be a turtle shell. Like what if we did a head coming out this way? And that might be kind of cool. Let's try that. Let's see what happens. Maybe these are spikes. So maybe we'll start by making these into, you know, 3-dimensional spikes. And we can see what happens. We'll just go with this one back behind those knuckles. This one's probably back on the far side, perhaps. This one, not sure. We'll just go like this. And maybe we'll add in a couple more that will make darker when we come to the shading pass. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's make up this shell. We're going to try to do this out of paneling. And I'm going to try to do them almost layered like brick, where they're offset from one another. We'll see how that goes. Not too bad so far. I think we'll create a crease right here just so it feels like it fits. And then we'll take this piece up as if the contour is really shifting. And then we'll do this chunk over. There we go. Okay, so not coming out too bad so far. Obviously, I think I'm gonna do the, well, I was thinking the head here. Yeah, I'll do the head here and the tail coming out that way. So let's do almost like a giant coil of some kind here. And obviously, I'm just loosely following the shapes. But I created them, they're my shapes, and I can do with them what I want. So if you need to change something or shift something because your idea has changed or shifted, you don't owe anybody an explanation. This is practice. This is trying out some new things. If you need to erase something, if you need to get some white out, it doesn't matter. This is your project. You don't owe anybody an explanation. It's not even really a project, is it? All right, let's get these panels done. And I think we'll do kind of a little cuffy thing around this side as well. Maybe have this go in. And we'll have a leg come out here. Not sure exactly how I want to do that, but I think we'll do something like this. Yeah, because then we can put the curvature lines, have it sloping back in that way. And we can have this little border area come out, just like we did on the other side, and go back behind it, as if the leg is coming in front. So this is not working out too badly. This guy's obviously going to be a bit more detailed than some of our other ones. All right, now it's just going to do a cylinder as a foot because robot, and because there's a lot of other detail work to do. So, all right, I'm going to go ahead and speed it up while I finish these panels. All right, coming to the end of these panels, and it's going to be time to start working on some of the more fun stuff. So I'm going to do the head. I think I'm actually going to go back to my pencil for a second. I'm going to have the head kind of come out like this. And I am just going to have it face to the right. I think that'll be just fine. So let's, rather than, going way overboard, let's give ourselves just some random shapes again. And then we'll be forced to find a way to turn them into something. He's only got one leg, so maybe we need to have another leg come out over here. Just realized that, poor guy. Oh well, buddy, we're not all born with all the things we need or want. Sorry, you had to learn this way. This will be really awkward, but it'll be fun. That's just how it goes sometimes. All right, let's go ahead and quickly kind of build in some shapes here. We'll do this as a cylinder there, and yeah, we'll have another cylinder kind of going back in that way. A bracket mechanic to go around it. I like to use hexagons, octagons, cylinders. They're really helpful in this kind of pursuit. But you don't need to know a whole lot about machinery to make this work. I certainly didn't. I have, at multiple points, looked up some robot drawings and watched people who I, admire their robots. I've watched them draw, or I've just analyzed their work. The biggest thing for me was trying to figure out how people handle joints. I had a lot of trouble with trying to make the joints work the way that I wanted to, when you're having an arm attached to something else. And there's been a lot of growth as I've figured those kind of things out. And that's been what has enabled me to make this a lot more fun. Because initially I was able to copy them really well. Of course, copying is way, way, way easier than inventing. But when I tried to make them on my own, they didn't turn out very well. So I'm gonna darken in this little bay. We'll call that leg good just because I kind of want to keep moving. This one is going to be much like that first. We're just going to come out with a cylinder. Just something functional. And slowly slope these up. And again, if this was a long-term project, I'd be working a little bit more slowly. I would be hatching a lot more things. I would be making sure that everything made some semblance of sense, but I don't much care here. This is just a practice thing. This is a fun thing. And I want you to see the whole process, because there's a good chance, I'm not particularly unhappy with any of these, but there was certainly a good chance that one of these went south. Inevitably, I'm going to be doing one of these demonstrations sometime, and something is not going to go the way that I want, and I'm just going to have to deal with it. And that's just how it is sometimes. I'm not going to purposely invent that, because that seems really inauthentic, but I think inevitably that'll happen. And hopefully when it does, I'll be able to take some solace in the fact that hopefully it's beneficial for you who are watching. It's hard because pretty much everything you see online is just somebody showing off the stuff that they're happy with. And that simply can't be all of your artwork. You can't make everything and have everything turn out the way that you want it to. That would just be ridiculous. It'd be inhuman. Could you get to that skill level? Yeah, of course, but... well, maybe not, actually, honestly. Now I'm thinking about it for a split second instead of just talking while I'm drawing. I'm not sure if you can. If you talk to, some of the best artists in the world, they can still find issues with their work. They're often some of the biggest perfectionists you'll ever find. This is definitely more alligator-y in the way that I'm building it out. But I wasn't 100% sure what to do with that up there. I'm going to put some more bolts on here. Just going to shade this part. Going to do a couple bolts here. I think I'm just gonna make the mouth goofy. Oh, it's less goofy than expected. It's still pretty goofy though. I like it. It makes, minimal sense. When in doubt, just add bolts to things. Make things make some semblance of sense. Add in little piston-y things. Imagine taking a drawing like this and handing it to like an animator or an engineer and being like, have fun, create what you can. And then we're going to do one triangular tooth, because why not? And then I think in the background here, we're going to have just something dark. We're going to shade that in as if what is above it is casting some shadows down on it. All right, I think we'll just try to keep it pretty simple from here on out, since this video is already getting a little bit longer than I anticipated, but hopefully there's been some stuff in here that's been of benefit to you. So let's go ahead and just quickly finish off some details. This is something I do when I've got necks or, long tube bits that I want to just simply handle. I'll just create some things that seem almost like brackets. I'm going to come in here and just create some circles as if they're bolts or points at which things flex. And then we'll just find a way to get ourselves out of this. Create some random rectangles back in here, as if these things make any sense. Add some little bolts. And then I'm just going to shade this in. If I was going to take a lot of time, I would probably just black this in. But for now, I'll just go ahead and put some hatching on it. All right, let's come over to this tail and see what we've got for our last little snippet. All right, I'm going to pretend this is kind of a hose or a tube of some kind coming out into this shape, as if the tail itself is coming away from us. And that'll make some sense now. And then I can turn this piece into another segment of that tail that's going this direction. And if you've seen any of my perspective videos recently, you can tell how, this is all freehand. And, it's not perfect or great, but it's really important to understand some perspective in order even just to make goofy shapes like this that somewhat function. And just because we can, we're going to make this a spiked ball tail. Let's do this so we can see the top of that one. We'll do the tube again coming from this one into this one. Yeah, I'm going to be wrapping this way and then kind of back in over there. We'll do this as a panel. All right. And I think for today, that will probably take care of us. Obviously, there's a lot more that I could do, but at a base level, this will suffice. I hope this has been beneficial for you, and I would love to see your little robot drawings if you did them. I just recently opened up a new part of the Discord server that has a spot specifically dedicated toward sharing the drawings you made if you actually made the drawings along with me on the video sessions. You can find that in the Discord server under YouTube, and I think there's video art is what the channel is called. If it's not, then I will flash it on the screen now. Yeah, we'll call that good. Well, thanks for being here. And thank you to my patrons as well, who are on the screen right now. You can feel free to check out the Patreon down below. It gives you updates to certain things, allows you to help dictate the direction this channel goes. So if there are specific topics you want me to talk about in podcasts or things you want me to share on these sessions, then you can help suggest through that platform. Well, I'll see you next time. Have a good one, y'all. See you soon.